On first down, they hand off to Marlon Mack. Huge hole, 50-yard line. He's at the 40, still going near sideline. He's at the 10. He's at the 5, and he will score. Touchdown, Marlon Mack. Touchdown, INDY. And again, it's picked off. It's Darius Leonard. Leonard with his second INT, and he's streaking down the near sideline. He's at the 40. He's at the 30. He's at the 20. He's gonna go. A pick six for the Maniac.
Horseshoe is back, baby. The horseshoe is back.
What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Bring Pounding victory the Indianapolis Colts have against the New York Jets. They pound New York by a score of 36-7. Now, within 2 weeks, the Indianapolis Colts have allowed a total of 18 points on defense. The Colts have also scored 18 points on defense in their 2 home games. Joining me, my friend Jacob Mummer. Jacob, man, first impressions of this game, man. I mean, just thoroughly dominating type of game from the score.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's just dominating on how well our defense played, because honestly, like, the offense was good, but the defense is what stood out. And I mean, anytime you can get maybe a pick six from your defense, you're great. But we had 2 pick sixes, a safety. Like, they were after it, they were motivated, and especially with kind of how banged up we are right now, I'm glad that these guys stepped up and they were able to bounce back, fill those positions, and be able to shut down this Jets team.
Man, you talk about shutting them down. I mean, let's just start here with Sam Darnold, 17 of 29, 58.6 completion percentage, 168 yards, 1 touchdown early on, 3 interceptions thrown, 47 quarterback rating. So now, last week, the Colts held Kirk Cousins, I believe it was something like a 15 quarterback rating.
Yeah, super low.
Sam Darnold has slightly better with that touchdown kind of helping him, but overall, dominant performance from this defense. Oh my goodness! Like, and you think of Xavier Rhodes, man, 2 interceptions, 1 for a pick six. TJ Carey has the other one. I mean, I feel like we've been pretty on Ballard about, man, we don't feel like you address the corner position enough. And then these 2 guys he brings in free agency have all 3 of your interceptions. Give me your overall thoughts, man, on how these 2 veterans played for this secondary.
Yeah, it makes me want to eat my words a little bit here, because after week 1 we were like, what are we doing? Like I was especially pretty vocal about, like, Xavier Rhodes completely blew coverage, all this and that, and then going up against week 2 with his old team, the Vikings, I was like, okay, he had a good game, but he also knows their guys, knows what they run. But then today, I mean, open the gates with a pick six, gets another one. He is here to play, and we might not be getting like prime time Xavier Rhodes, but we are getting a good version of Xavier Rhodes still. And I love that TJ Carey is able to come in and produce as well, because the beginning of the game, they looked a little slow, and they had the pick six, great way to start. But then, Sam Darnold was able to come back, and the Jets were able to score a touchdown, and you're like, okay, let's get back to it. Let's keep up that motivation. And then after that, they just tore away this game, and it's great to see the turnovers. I know they're on the quest for 40 turnovers, and I mean, at this rate, 3 picks a game, I mean, that's gonna be tremendous.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're talking about, I believe they had 3 interceptions last week as well. So now, after week 1 with no interceptions, they've recorded 6 picks in 2 weeks. And man, this defense is just turning it to another level. I mean, this is stuff that we haven't seen this Colts defense do. And I know it's the Jets. Like, we expected this to happen, but Jacob, we talked about this. You have to play the Jets like we know how bad the Jets are.
Yeah.
You have to play them like that. You have to go out there and you have to dominate. That has been a thing with Frank Reich that I have been very nitpicky about and very frustrated with him about. His teams would always come out against teams we're supposed to blow out, and we let them hang in the game. You think of Miami last year especially. I mean, that game was just like, how are they still in this game? And there's just certain moments where it feels like that happens from time to time. But the Colts come out for the second straight week. They look focused. They look determined. And they really step on the opponents and should step on an inferior opponent like the Jets' throats. But they're doing that. And for me, that's a great sign, showing that they're not just a good team, but they're trending towards being a great team. And I think that's just the things we saw, even back to the Peyton Manning days. The Colts would go and they would stomp teams they were supposed to stomp, right? And that's what the Colts are doing. And that's something we haven't seen in a long time. It's been a lot of consistency. So that's certainly very exciting to see from a Colts standpoint, man. Like, I'm super pumped.
Yeah. Oh, so am I, totally. And I know the defense has been a work in progress for the past couple, seasons, but you're finally getting to see this vision of the defense that Chris Ballard has and all the different acquisitions he's brought in because you're looking at the defense, most of the guys we drafted or we had on practice squads. I mean, we traded for DeForest Buckner and we signed Xavier Rhodes and TJ Carey, but and Tavon Wilson, but like most of these guys were homegrown talent, if you will. And just the way that this defense is constructed. And, even though we only got like one sack today, we had consistent pressure just for some reason. I mean, Sam Darnold was slippery today. I don't know what it was, but there was times where, 2-3 guys would have a hand on him and he just spun out of it. So against, I would arguably say against half the quarterbacks in the NFL, those are sacks all day.
Right.
You just get some of these young guys that can spin and move a little more agile and that's all it takes. But yeah, I love the pressure we brought today. Even though we got one sack, that doesn't equate to the amount of pressure that we put on Sam Darnold.
Yeah, it was definitely some pressure. I know DeForest Buckner had that one play that was just phenomenal. Justin Houston had a sack in the end zone that resulted in a safety. Kenny Moore, I believe, came on a blitz, got a sack.
Yep.
So Colts got to him a couple times. But overall, it wasn't like, for the offense at least, it wasn't like, blow you out of the water type of game for this offense.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, the Colts and the Jets were not so far apart. I mean, really, the Jets ran more plays than the Colts on offense. And, the Jets ran 4 more plays. The Jets had only, I believe it's 6 less first down than the Colts did. But overall, just this defense came and they rose to the occasion. They really did. They had a phenomenal game from start to finish. This defense from back-to-back weeks has really looked like we thought it might and like we hoped it would.
Yeah.
We've just been so used to being let down by this defense. It's really strange to say the defense for consecutive weeks has been a strength of this team, not the offense. So super encouraging on that front, just to see the improvement of this defense from week to week. Week 1, we were just like, is this the same old thing? Like we've seen time and time again. They pick you apart in that zone coverage. But the Colts, they adjusted, they adapted, and now quarterbacks can't hardly complete passes. I mean, Sam Darnold's less than a 60% passer, a little above 50. And then obviously Kirk Cousins couldn't throw a pass to save his life last week. And you saw what he did against this Titans secondary this week. I mean, that's got to make you feel even better considering how good he looked this week. I know ultimately the Titans squeaked it out like they've done this season, but overall this Colts defense has looked legit in these last couple weeks. And it certainly helps to see that, with all the weapons the Vikings have, the Colts were able to hold them to only 11 points. And really the 11 points, 7 of those were in garbage time too.
Right.
Or I guess
and
they did the 2 points.
Yeah. And I think it's obviously reassuring because this defense was hyped up, the acquisition of DeForest Buckner, all these other pieces were hyped up. And then we just had such a crazy season. And it's only week 3 because you go into week 1 and you're rethinking the whole team. You're like, what did we do? We had all these things promised for us, all these new toys, and now nothing's working. What are we going to do? Blow it up, all this. And then week 2, you're like, all right, we got a nice win against a decent opponent. And then you go into week 3 and you're like, all right, are we going to fall back into the Jacksonville trap where we just play down to people? But no, today was a great game. All regards, everyone played to the level that Frank Reich and the organization wanted them to play to today. Phillip Rivers got to rest a little bit, honestly, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, Jacoby Brissett came in towards the end, so that's always nice to see. We got to see some new faces. Reese Fountain made a couple catches, so I really liked what I saw on both sides of the ball today. But yeah, that defense is just that has to be the talk of the week going into next week. No
kidding. I mean, you talk about this offense didn't light the world on fire by any means. I mean, Phillip Rivers only threw it 21 times for 217 yards and a touchdown. The good thing is no turnovers for the Colts in that department, so that's great. Jonathan Taylor had an okay day. He had 13 carries for 59 yards. He had a touchdown, which is good. Wasn't a great day from him, I would say, overall, compared to what we saw even last week. But, it was efficient, and the Colts got the job done ultimately. And, I thought it was a pretty good game from start to finish. And, it's really funny because, the Colts had 353 yards, which isn't like, oh, my goodness, like that's crazy. But the big thing is the turnovers. The Colts had 0 turnovers. The Jets had 3.
Yeah.
And that's huge. That's huge right there. I mean,
absolutely.
Like this defense was phenomenal. You mentioned 2 pick sixes. I mean, that's 12 points right there. I guess 14 points if you count the 2 extra points.
Right.
That you do there. And so that is just a huge, huge swing. But, I said this in a tweet. The Colts now have allowed 18 points, I believe it is, between this last week and then this week. I think it's 18 points. They've also scored 18 points. So if that tells you how lights out this defense is playing right now, I mean, man, this is so good. And it's so refreshing to see a Colts team come out and be focused from week to week. It's not like you're riding the high of last week. You're like, man, we're a good football team. And then you go out and you lay a stinker like this against the Jets. And the Colts have notoriously struggled against the Jets.
Yeah.
They got torched by Sam Darnold a few years ago, back in 2018. And what happens? Colts come down here and they really make Sam Darnold look like Sam Darnold's looked this year. I mean, really, I am going to keep saying it because it was just like, I just can't believe this defense and the strides they've made from week 1 down to week 3. It's just incredible.
It's just to see that transformation is something else. But also what I love is our ability to create these turnovers and getting the pick sixes are awesome. Getting the safeties are awesome. And what that does is that takes pressure off our offense because we went into that. I mean, our offense probably took the field with 5 minutes left in the first quarter and we were tied. So like, it's, that was great. And then just the more points that our defense can get, and the more stops they can create, it takes pressure off our offense. It doesn't make Phillip Rivers have to make those questionable throws, like we saw in week 1. There's no pressure on him. There's no pressure on, Jonathan Taylor or Nyheim Hines to make big, or anybody, honestly, to try to make big plays and where the risk might outweigh the reward there. It doesn't lead to questionable play calling on 4th downs. Like there's no need to do any of that when our defense is able to do what they did in this game. So I just, I hope they can, again, it was the Jets, and I just hope they can keep this energy moving forward. I don't see why they can't. I mean, just the way they were playing today, it was phenomenal. So we just got to keep this up because we got some tough opponents in the stretch.
We do, and it's great to see the Colts, now have a winning record for the first time this season. Mm-hmm. They're going and playing the 3-0 Bears. So I mean, this is going to be a test. I know the Bears have had some games these last couple of weeks where they've been down a bunch, but I mean, overall, the Bears are 3-0, and you can't argue with that. And we're going into their place. It's notoriously hard to play in Soldier Field. So, you're feeling good these last few weeks, but I'm going to be very interested to see what happens here in week 4 with this Bears defense, versus this Colts offense. Offense hasn't lit the world on fire these last 2 games, but, they've been efficient when they need to be. And so that's going to be a really interesting battle. I mean, we'll get to that later on in the week, but let's talk about, let's just look at some individual stats a little bit here. I mentioned, Phillip Rivers, Jonathan Taylor, T.Y. Hilton led the Colts in receiving yards. He had 3 catches for 52 yards. So it wasn't like a huge crazy day for him. Jordan Wilkins also played very well. He had 9 carries for 39 yards. He had the longest run of the day, a 22-yarder. Jacoby Brissett, like you mentioned, came into the game, and I was like, oh man, play Jacob Eason, but Jacob Eason wasn't active, so you couldn't, which really stinks. But so overall, T.Y. Hilton led them. Mo Alley Cox had another pretty good day. 3 catches, 50 yards. He also had a touchdown again. So Mo Alley Cox playing well. Nyheim Hines got a little bit more involved in the offense this week.
Thankfully.
40 yards. That's what we were really surprised about. Like he just was kind of like week 1, it was all Nyheim Hines. Week 2, it's like no Nyheim Hines. Let's find that happy medium. And the Colts certainly did. I think that's a good number for Hines. 4 catches on 5 targets for 40 yards. Very efficient. Zach Pascal, 2 catches, 34 yards. Michael Pittman had 3 catches for 26 yards. He left the game early on, came back, so that's great news.
Right.
Seems like he's fine. He should be good to go, hopefully, going on. But and Darius Fountain had a couple catches. His first couple NFL catches. He had 2 targets. He caught both of them for 23 yards. I remember he had 1 catch at the end of the half. That was a really good catch, and set the Colts up well. Unfortunately, they couldn't. That's crazy. If they would have made another field goal, they almost would have scored 40 points. Hot Rod doesn't miss that field goal. But overall, from start to finish, it was an efficient day for the offense. It wasn't lights out. It was just highlighted again by this Colts defense. It really was. And let's talk about this defense. Darius Leonard leads them again. He has 7 total tackles, a tackle for loss, a pass defended. Corey Willis, second on the team. He had 8 tackles. Taekwon Wilson, I thought, played pretty well as well. 31. Yeah. It's kind of funny because I'm like, it's weird to see number 31 Wilson on the Colts playing well. He's been a good veteran presence in that secondary very well. We mentioned Xavier Rhodes had his 2 interceptions. He left the game, so we'll have to monitor that. But he had one of those interceptions for a touchdown. TJ Carey also had an interception, a pick 6. So in total, the Colts had 3 interceptions on Sam Darnold for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is crazy. And then Rodrigo Blankenship, he was 2 for 3. He missed 1 field goal. I mean, yeah, that stinks. And it's kind of crazy because, like, the guy before that, he had made 6 straight field goals, and he misses 1 field goal, and people are like, let's find a new kicker. I'm like, let's just slow our roll.
Yeah.
He's a rookie. I know
right.
that was kind of a bad miss, but, let's just give him some grace here. He still made 2 of 3 field goals. He was perfect on extra points. Yeah, you're going to have a few of those things, but, I mean, you look at just the turmoil at kicker, and, like, I'll have that from occasion. In a blowout victory, if you miss a kick, you don't want that to happen, but, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I mean, I think, I saw that too in groups and everything. It's like, oh, we kept the wrong kicker. Well, I don't think we necessarily did. He's a rookie. He's got to learn. And obviously it was not a pressure kick. It was not anything like that. It's just things that you learn and things that you bounce back from. But what I think is the most important thing is he didn't get down on himself. He missed it and came back out and made every kick after that. So that's what you want to see. You want to see a rookie not get discouraged, have a short memory, come out there and nail the next kicks. And you know what? I mean, no kickers are perfect. I'd like to see a kicker in the NFL that has never missed a field goal because that just doesn't happen. Like, whether it's pressured or not. I mean, good kickers miss extra points all the time. So I'm not too worried about his performance. As long as he's, hitting above 50%, I would say we're pretty good.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, man. I'm just like shocked, man, by this victory. Like, not this victory, but just this defensive performance from back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm very pleasantly surprised, but, like, this is not something we've seen from this team in a long time. And credit Matt Eberflus, credit this defensive staff. They really have adjusted well these last couple weeks to really some guys, that, they're not the greatest quarterbacks in the world. I won't even go close to saying that. But these are 2 guys that we saw Kirk Cousins, what he did against the Titans. I mean, they could swing it. And the Colts held them virtually to hardly any, didn't really do anything. So overall, I am very pleased with how this Colts defense has played. What were your overall 3 biggest impressions from this game about this Indianapolis team?
Yeah, so I think obviously the defense sticks out, and I won't belabor the point, but just the way that we found guys to step up and we got pressure on the quarterback. Defense is number 1 for me. That's great to see. But another thing is I talked about earlier this week that we need to be able to finish off drives. You don't want Blankenship having to kick 4 field goals a game. So he only kicked 3 this game. So that's better. But I think we still need to work on finishing off drives with touchdowns because I don't know if we can. I mean, as great as this defense performance was, I don't know if we can always expect, 2 pick sixes and a safety. Like, we might be good for 1 a game, but, I think we just still need to focus on hitting the red zone stronger and getting scores here. And just a final point here, and this is really ticky-tack stuff at this point, but Jonathan Taylor, I think, needs to work on finding holes a little better. Week 2 was great. Everything seemed to open up for him. But in a day where I would say our offensive line struggled a little bit, it looked like, on those runs up the middle, he was just focused on getting up the middle when if he took, a cut to the left, it's wide open. So I think he just needs to focus and be able to I say all this and I definitely couldn't be a running back trying to, move all my body weight and dodge tacklers in the blink of an eye. But I just think he needs just to kind of take a step back and look what's all available, because even if the play is up the middle, I mean, if that left side's open, you got to at least explore that option. You don't have to run it to a T, especially if it seems like our offensive line is having trouble creating holes. So I think vision is going to be a big thing that Jonathan Taylor can work on. But I mean, I think he can do it. I mean, he's proven this far what he can do. I think we're just going to slowly but surely see improvements in his game throughout this season.
Yeah, and the thing I love about Jonathan Taylor is everything about him is very coachable. Yep. Very, very coachable. And the things that he does well, in that his longest run, a 16-yarder, he drove for about 5 or 6 more yards. He drove that entire defensive line.
Yeah.
He's just a truck in there. I mean, he's got the physical tools. He's got the speed. He's just got to refine himself. And like you said, just his vision a little bit. But still, on the day, he averaged 4.5 yards a carry.
So you can't argue with that. So
better than last week. So overall, I liked certain things I saw from him. I really liked what I saw from Jordan Wilkins as well.
Yep.
I think that, this pair, honestly, I'm so glad the Colts kept Jordan Wilkins because he has stepped in and been very big, especially in closing out games. He's just a really nice second option there behind Taylor. And honestly, people have asked, would you re-sign Mac? I'm like, Jordan Wilkins is playing really well. Is that, maybe I probably would still, but I don't want to give Jordan Wilkins less snaps at this point. I mean, he's being fantastic. I mean,
yeah. Well, I think you could do it creatively here. I think you could bring Mac back, not totally unsure of what he does, and just have him kind of sprinkled in like Jordan Wilkins was, and then have Jordan Wilkins become like the second back here. Because like you mentioned, they're a great tandem. As we saw today, you can pop him in, pop him out, and get similar stuff. I love the cuts that Jordan Wilkins was making and the way he just gets upfield. Like that's both of Taylor and Wilkins just know how to get upfield, and that's what we need out of our running backs. But no, I don't think it'd be terrible, if we brought back Mac and he's our third, sometimes second options with Taylor and Wilkins really leading the way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm just going to pull up this stat that our friend John X has here. He said the last time the Colts have had safeties in back-to-back week was 1960.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, yeah, a long, long time the Colts have not done that. And also the last time the Colts have had a pick six in a safety has been 1996. The year I was born was the last time they did that, ironically, against the Jets as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that just tells you how incredible these last 2 weeks have been for the Colts defense. And my fantasy team has loved every minute of it. I started defense. I'm very glad I have. They have definitely lived up to that billing. I mean, I was tempted after week one. I was like, do I keep them? Do I not keep them? Very glad I kept them. They have been phenomenal so far.
I had to play against them this week, so I'm not as not. I mean, I'm thrilled with the performance, but my fantasy team's like, I got to find ways to score elsewhere because I mean that Colts defense right now it's going to give you at least 20 points a game for fantasy, and that's crazy from a defense.
It's amazing. It really is. I love what I'm seeing from this defense. I really hope that whoever the Bears play at quarterback, I'm not really scared of them.
Yeah.
Because what we did in Nick Foles last year with when he was with the Jaguars. So, but really hope Mitchell Trubisky's their quarterback because that would be even more good for my fantasy team this next week. So, we got a lot of comments here. I don't know how many we can get into, but overall, man, it's an incredible game. Nomadic Brian says Reese Felton's was a really good sign today.
Yep.
I thought he definitely had some nice moments. It's good to see him getting some game action. I mean, he had some snaps last week, didn't really see any targets. He sees 2 targets this week. So it's good to see him getting a little bit more involved in this offense, especially with Paris Campbell out for an extended period of time. So I'm really excited to see what Reese does. I mean, he's every chance he's given, he's gone out there and he's made plays. At least, we haven't really seen them because they've been a lot in training camp and preseason. But overall, I love what Reese Fountain brings. I love his story, his recovery, just the determination of this guy. And I know it's only 2 catches, but that's significant. That's significant, man. There were 2 good key catches, and I love what I see from him. And I think it's telling that the Colts they scratched Desmond Patman in favor of Reese Fountain. I mean, I think that just kind of tells you what they think of Reese Fountain at this point. Yeah. He's playing very well for the time and the snaps that he gets. So, I mean, it's really awesome.
I mean, and I would say too, I think he's going to excel more because of how open Phillip Rivers is in the passing game. He doesn't have one guy that is his absolute go-to. I mean, today we saw T.Y. Hilton, 3 receptions, Mo Alley Cox, 3 reception, Hines 4, Pascal 2, Pittman 3, Fountain 2. So he's spreading the ball out and not just singling out one receiver, which I mean impacts opposing defenses because now they have to try to figure out a way to cover 3 or 4 guys at a time. So I think Fountain's really gonna excel here in the next couple of weeks. It probably won't be like extended looks. It'll probably be 2 receptions a game. But if he catches everything that's thrown his way, I mean, I can't argue with that production.
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's awesome because the Colts are in a really good position now with Houston losing. Houston's now 0-3. Unfortunately, Tennessee pulled one out of their butt at the last minute and then won. But, the Colts right now are looking really good. They're 2-1. They're second in the division right now behind the Titans, obviously. With Jacksonville losing and Houston losing, it's looking really good for this Colts team, especially after obviously losing to Jacksonville in week 1. Yeah. And man, it bothers me, man. Why couldn't we beat Jacksonville? We can go right now. But I think that was a great wake-up call, honestly, for this defense and for this team in general, because you look at it, man, like, oh my gosh, like after that, this defense has played lights out. Like they have not, I mean, really, like it's crazy because after that initial touchdown, I think it was like the first drive the Jets had, they didn't score at all. They didn't get even close to scoring. I mean, this Colts defense was phenomenal. Oh gosh, I keep saying they're phenomenal, but it's just, I don't have words for it, man. It's just like, I have not seen this. I'm just kind of at a loss for words at this point. So, Let's talk about this real fast here.
Okay.
Con says it seems like Burton might come back next week. Excited to see what he does. Seems like he was Phil's favorite target in camp. Now, I don't know exactly. I haven't heard a whole lot of updates on Trey Burton at this point. But, honestly, I'm kind of to the point where I'm like, if he comes back, awesome. But if he doesn't, I like Mo Alley-Cox and Jack Doyle quite a lot. So,
yeah.
I don't know your overall thoughts on Burton. I mean, he adds another element to this offense, obviously. But I'm kind of just like, take all the time you need right now. The Colts are looking good at tight end right now. I mean, really, with the emergence of Mo Alley-Cox these last 2 weeks, the Colts, and if Trey Burton can stay healthy, they have 3 legitimate tight ends on their roster that, you can go out there and you can trust to go out there and make plays for you. I mean, I looked at this tight end group and I was like, I just don't really know what you have with this team, with this position group rather. But, man, they've come out. Mo Alley-Cox has proved me wrong. I said this is a year for him. Is he going to be another Eric Swope, the type of project-type player but never really pans out? Or is he going to be, some of those, converted basketball players who turn into really good tight ends? And he's looked really good the last 2 weeks, really good.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with what he's been able to do, and I think he's in that conversation at least right now with Jack Doyle coming back slowly for the tight end 1 spot. And yeah, I mean, if we get Burton back, great. But honestly, like if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like as much as I hate to say that because we know what Burton has done, like I mean, Mo Alley-Cox is getting it done, and I'd add another. We cut Roosevelt Nix pretty early in training camp, and we're like, why'd you sign him if you're going to cut him all this? Yeah. And then they get Noah Tongiai, who I thought was going to be more of in the passing game, but they're actually using him in the fullback spot, which I love. I mean, he's creating holes, getting some nice blocks. So, I mean, the production across the board from our tight ends and these 4 specifically with Alley-Cox, Tongiai, Doyle, and Burton, I think is going to be exciting to see. I think it's, it was great that Burton was Phil's favorite target in camp. I don't know if that remains the same. Like, I don't know if Burton plays, if it's just, dump offs to Burton the whole time. I think Burton might have to work a little bit back into the lineup, but there's obviously room for it as we can see Rivers spreading the ball out here. But it's hard to take Mo Alley-Cox out of that equation with how he's played this past 2 weeks. I
love it, man. I just love what we've seen from Mo Alley-Cox. Like, it's just been so encouraging to see that. I mean, from Mo Alley-Cox, like a guy he had some flashes, but he never put it all together in a full 16-game season. So I'm super excited to see the production from him these last couple weeks. Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to talk about. I'm gonna also post, a post-game kind of reaction and go through each individual stat. But I mean, initial reaction, man, this is a solid victory, back-to-back weeks. The Colts are undefeated at home. They're 2-0 at home now. They're looking really good. I mean, from a defensive standpoint, they are looking the best they've looked in a decade. I mean, Xavier Rhodes played lights out, a guy we weren't really sure on. We were kind of like he could be really good or really bad. Week 1, he was really bad. These last 2 weeks, he's been really good. So certainly great to see a guy like him who struggled with injuries the last couple of years and consistency. He's playing really, really well. I mean, he's playing a little bit like that 2017 Xavier Rhodes.
Yeah.
Pro corner that the Colts were hoping they'd get a portion of that, and he's playing really well. This week was just a great confidence boost for him for sure.
Right, and you want to talk about people returning from injuries. Whenever we get Rocky Sin back, I mean, with the way Xavier Rhodes and TJ Carey have been playing, it's that's another guy that if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like right. And I know they love Rocky Sin, and by no means am I saying we should bench him, but I mean, I think you have to take a serious look at how our secondary is performing right now without him, and it's not his fault. Like, you can't help it, but they just need to take a look at that and see how they can still incorporate him without, messing up the chemistry and the flow that we have right now in our defense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it certainly looks great in Colts land, man. I wasn't able to see a ton of this game, but it just seemed like every time I was, it was like, oh, could this game get, could the Jets get back into this game? It looked like early on maybe the Colts were kind of letting them hang around a little bit, but then the Colts put the gas, the pedal down, and they just did what they had to do, and they put the nail in the coffin, really. I mean, they stepped on the Jets' throat. They did what we said they have to do. Derek posted his 5 keys. He said, take their will away early. And the Colts took their will away, and the Jets just looked completely unhinged. I mean, really, it was a very, very great performance. It's weird because the Colts didn't get a ton of sacks. They weren't killing Sam Darnold every play, but like this secondary has we thought it could be potentially a weakness. If we said, oh, there's a weakness on this team, we said maybe the secondary could be, but they have turned it into a strength, and it's really exciting to see. I mean, you saw last year the Colts secondary, sometimes they just struggled, and it was really a big factor into why they kind of faltered down the stretch. And now that they're playing well, I mean, this is the difference between starting off your season like the Colts did a couple of years ago when you're 1-5 and starting off 2-1. It's just such a great feeling. You feel like you're more ahead. Now you have a chance for the division. You're gonna play Tennessee twice still. You're gonna play Houston twice still. You're still gotta play Jacksonville once. Still got a lot more division games to go, and you're looking great here early. I know it's only 3 weeks in, but I mean, this is all you could ask for right now.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like, I would almost say that the focus is now on our defensive line because of how much I hate to call them missed tackles, but just the way we got pressure, but weren't able to actually bring Darnold down. The way our secondary is playing is kind of shift the focus now. Now I hope they focus on how to get our defensive line scheme to where we can start bringing quarterbacks down and get up that sack number while still maintaining our coverage. I mean, this defense, I think it's as advertised, but I don't think they're done yet. I think there's still another gear that they can get to, and everybody's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, I didn't catch who was the starter at free safety today. I don't know if you were able to catch that.
That's a good question. I'm not entirely. I think it was Wilson, Taekwon Wilson. But I know Julian Blackman got in early because I did see him pop in, but I'm not 100%. Don't quote me on that. But I think Taekwon Wilson might have gotten the start and Julian Blackman, but he played a big portion too. He didn't have as good of a, as noticeable of a game, I guess I'll say, as he did in week 2, but I thought he played a pretty vital role.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like, we're not saying, okay, the Colts are are having the best, secondary in the league. I know they play the Jets. Right. I mean, obviously, it's like, okay, they're not great. But overall, it's very encouraging to see the Colts doing what they need to do,
Yep.
Like, and that's all you can ask for at this point. And man, some of these question marks are kind of being answered a little bit now. It's only 3 weeks in, but like, okay, who's going to step in at the other defensive end position? Danico Autry has looked very good so far.
Yes.
He's beating guys. And this is more of the Danico Autry we saw in 2018, the guy who almost had double-digit sacks. I mean, him and Houston on the edge, they're playing really well. Houston had that sack today that ultimately resulted in that safety. And then obviously DeForest Buckner is just a force on his own. So, and then this defensive line, they have really stepped it up these last couple weeks, especially. They've done a really, really phenomenal job. I wish they would get a little bit more, in the sack department, but overall, I mean, I can't really complain. I've liked what I've seen from this defensive line so far. So, yeah. And also, Kemoko Toure isn't even back yet, Right. He's going to come back in a couple weeks still. So, I mean, I'm excited to see what element he brings when he's fully healthy. It's crazy to think the defensive line's playing this good without probably their best pure pass rusher in Kemoko Toure. I mean, I'm really excited to see what he gets back for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this defensive line is good right now. Once we get our pieces back, I mean, it's going to be crazy the way that we can, move people around. Danico Autry, like you said, has just been stellar. Can't complain with his performance. And I just love how they're able to kind of, plug and play with all these different guys like Al-Qadim Muhammad, Danico Autry once we get Kemoko Toure back. So just the way that they're able to plug and play and get similar production, I think is huge because, and Taekwon Lewis as well. I mean, you're having to sub guys in on the fly and you're like, okay, let's see what we can do if maybe DeForest Buckner has to sit or he gets gassed or something. And you're able to sub in these guys. And I mean, everybody was in the backfield today. It wasn't just one guy that was back there all the time. We had a multitude of defensive linemen in the backfield.
Yeah, it's great to see the Colts have some, solid rotational pieces that can get to the passer and can perform well. I mean, last week, Taylor Stallworth had some pretty good plays as well. Kind of, when the Vikings were in that red zone in the first drive that they had down there when they scored 3 points, he was a big reason why they did. And so just different guys stepping up at different points. It's really awesome to see that the Colts can have just all these different guys rotated in and they can still get consistent pressure, can consistently stop the run. I'm really, really pumped to see, with the growth of some of these guys. A lot of these guys are young. A lot of these young, rotational guys, and they're not fully developed into what they can be. So I'm really excited to see as they continue to develop. You mentioned Taekwon Lewis. I've just loved what I've seen from him the first couple of weeks, starting in training camp, and now he's really come out and he said, I need to earn this, and he really has. He's earned every single rep that he's given. And I'm really excited to see the future for him as, you know, maybe he eventually goes into a starter role somewhere, maybe defensive end.
Sure.
Who knows? But I'm excited to see the progress from him. Like, he's really virtually been non-existent the first couple of years. And to just see how great he's been, it's just really, really, really encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue there. Just the production that, and like I mentioned this earlier, it's guys that we've drafted, guys that we've had on practice squads that we've nurtured and helped them, you know, become the players they are today. And I think that's extremely important because you went into this Jets game, and this was a huge storyline of like the Jets had like 11 players that were formerly on the Colts. So it's like, you know, they're trying to pick up some pieces and plug it in. It's just not working. Where the Colts are growing this talent, they're drafting this talent, they're finding the gems later on in the draft and able to make something of them. I think that's huge for an organization.
Absolutely. Well, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter stream, guys. For the 108 of you in here, appreciate it. If you haven't yet, hit the like button. Also hit the subscribe button. We gained a decent amount of subscribers today, so if you would like to join our community. We'll definitely try to stream the games during the games and after the games. So be sure to do that. Here's a plug for Colts Brawl. Be sure to check them out at the Brawl Network as well. I'm a co-host there along with Jacob. So we're going to post a recap and have that posted tomorrow. We're going to record tonight. So be sure to check that out as well. But overall, it has been a great win for the Colts. It seems like all phases were playing efficient today. The defense obviously highlights with the 16 points that they scored today, scored more points than they allowed today. So overall, it's really, really encouraging. Jacob, anything else, man, that you got before we wrap this thing up?
No, I mean, this was a solid outing, you know, and even what I loved was that even though, you know, Jonathan Taylor didn't have as big a day as we have hoped, Phillip Rivers might have not, I mean, he had a good game, but maybe not a big of a day, our defense stepped up. And I think that's what's going to be important moving forward is if some part of our game's lagging, other people need to step up and bring each other up. And you have these motivators like Darius Leonard, like, you know, leaders like Phillip Rivers, T.Y. Hilton, guys that, I mean, T.Y. Hilton had a great bounce back game today too. We caught everything thrown at him. So, I mean, we need these guys that are able to step up, lift each other up and keep moving forward. Cause you know, I've said it before, this team's got a lot of potential and I don't think they've unlocked what they can fully do yet.
Right, and that's the crazy thing. Like, the Colts still left points on the board. They scored 36 points. They still left some on the board. But you feel like, oh, man, if they would have just done this well, then they could have, you know, scored even more points. They could have scored 40-plus points today. So I'm really, really encouraged to see in this, like, you know, you did really well, but you could still do better. And that's super encouraging from a Colts standpoint. So, all right, guys, that'll wrap up this stream. Thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate it. I know it's a little bit shorter than we normally do, and also thank you, Jacob, for coming on.
No problem.
With Derek, going back to see family. I really appreciate it, man. Great victory for the Colts overall, man.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Thanks for having me. Love talking about the Colts, man, especially right now. Got a lot of a great potential, got a great schedule coming up and a lot of great topics to get into. Yeah,
for sure. And if you guys are like, oh, man, I wish the stream didn't end, go back and check Derek's stream out. He streamed the entire game play-by-play. So if there's a moment you're like, I would like to see Derek's reaction, be sure to check that out. This is our last video. I'm not sure if it's exactly posted on our YouTube channel yet, but I believe if you would just search Colts live stream, you should be able to find it there. So be sure to check that out. All righty. Well, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. And as always, go Colts.